Yo, what's up guys, it's Talon. So today we have patch 6.0 D that just came out, and we're just basically going to go over all the gameplay changes, all the changes that relate to the meta and that type of thing. So just going to get straight into it. The first thing to note is that Poppy will be coming out March 28th, so in about 2 weeks. Just wild pass, don't really care about these things. And then going into the first champion change, we got Corki. So Corki, they say his rework wasn't as strong as they thought it would be, so they're buffing his attack speed per level and his attack damage per level. And then his ultimate is going to take less time to charge up one of his missiles. And then it also, the auto attacks will reduce the missile charge time by more based on your crit. So the more crit you have, the more it's going to get reduced. And so yeah, honestly, this change for Corki, I mean, I thought Corki was going to be better than he was after the rework, but I still think Corki's really solid after the rework. Like, I think he's a top probably 5 or 6 ADC in the game. I think this makes him, again, still top 5, probably top 4, top 3. I would say like Varus and Kai'Sa are the only ones who I can see that are definitely better than him. And then after that, he definitely fits in with the other top ADCs right now. So he's a very solid pick, but he's not absurdly broken as I thought he was going to be. So that is something to note. Obviously in mid lane, he's also a really solid champion, but things like Syndra and Echo still do outperform him overall. Next up, we have Annie. So she's going to now cost less mana to use her first ability. And then the damage is also going to be up a little bit more base damage after, the second or the first level up. And then a little more AP scaling as well. And then her shield is going to give her a bit more movement speed as well. So overall, nothing crazy. I don't think Annie is super strong right now, though she's quite a nice just push and roam champion, very easy to use and still can get consistent value. The problem for her is a lot of the lane matchups into the mages like Orianna, Syndra, Victor, she struggles a lot. But if the enemy lock in an assassin or a pretty aggressive comp, or you just want a champion who can roam a lot and play around your teammates, then she's going to be great for that. So overall, not the strongest in the meta, but has those niche scenarios she can be good into champions like Echo, for example. Okay, so next up we have Lucian. He's getting a bit more AD per level, and then his cooldown on his third ability, which is his dash, is also getting reduced in the mid or in the early and mid game. Honestly, does this change a lot? Not really. I think Lucian's already a pretty solid burst champion. He works well with champions like Nami, and with most supports, frankly. Like, he's pretty good with both. The issue for him is he just falls off compared to a lot of the other like scaling AD carries that are really strong right now. So for me, I don't think this changes Lucian's place in the meta. It's still a solid champion, but nothing crazy. So yeah, that's about it. Then we have Ezreal. So Ezreal is getting a bit of a movement speed buff. Honestly, I don't know how much a 335 to 340 changes anything. Like, I don't even know which champions have what numbers of movement speed. So I frankly have no idea how that will feel. But then his Mystic Shot, which is his first ability, is now getting a bit more AD scaling. So I mean, this is nice, right? I do feel like Ezreal in the meta right now just doesn't feel that great. It's like if you don't do really well in lane phase, you kind of just, again, you get outscaled by a lot of champions. It's pretty hard to get that much consistent poke with all of the enchanters having stuff like Harmonic Echo and healing, so a lot of your poke gets healed up. He just overall doesn't feel great right now, and I don't really think this is going to change a lot. Of course, any buff is going to make a champion stronger, but frankly, I don't think it's going to do much. I think he's still a little bit, below average when it comes to ADC. Okay, then we have Wukong getting a buff, which is kind of cool. I actually really think Wukong's a fun champion. So they're buffing his passive health regeneration from 1.5% max health to 2.5% max health. This is going to make him a lot stronger in solo lane, because having sustain in solo lane is definitely one of the most important aspects of that lane. And then they're also buffing his first ability by making it a lower cooldown and cost less mana. Again, this is the best for solo lane, because obviously if you're jungle, you have a blue buff. But if you're solo lane, you don't. And so he's going to have more poke with his first ability, and his mana consumption is going to be less. And then his mana consumption on his third ability is also less. So he's going to have way more mana, way more sustain, and more consistent poke in lane with his first ability. So I frankly think that Wukong is going to be a pretty underrated Baron laner. I think a lot of people won't still play him, but his lane phase was already strong. Anytime the enemy are a bit squishier, he's a really nice Baron laner to lock in for those types of cases, just to get that burst damage, have the good engage potential, still a decent split pusher, just pretty versatile, just struggles into these tank champions sometimes. But yeah, I think in jungle, I don't think this changes much, because it's mostly related to sustain and mana, and frankly those aren't as big of an issue when you have your smite to regen off camps. You have your mana from your blue buff. So I think a solo lane Wukong is much stronger now. Okay, then we have Graves getting a buff. to his magic resistance, his base magic resistance, his first ability cooldown is getting lowered by a decent little bit, and it's going to do more damage to monsters, which is going to buff his clear speed. And then his armor bonus on his third ability passive is going to be significantly increased from 8 to 13 level 1, 14 to 18, 20 to 23, and 26 to 28. So especially the early game armor, which is going to help him get through the early game a lot. That's actually really significant in my opinion. Like the quick draw, the additional armor, I mean 5 armor per stack is a lot in the early game. I think that's a really big deal. And then having a better clear speed, he's going to be able to farm up and scale really, a lot better. And he already has really good burst damage in the later parts of the game. So I think as a counter to AD champions, he's going to be really strong right now. And just generally, honestly, I think he's going to be quite a good champion. I don't think he's going to be near the, the most broken Echo, Zed, whatever. But I do think he's a solid carry champion if you like playing those kind of ranged jungle champions for sure. Okay, then we have Mordekaiser, and he's getting more base damage on his first ability, as well as more AP scaling. But the ultimate cooldown is getting nerfed a little bit. So overall, I don't think this is like a huge change. I think overall, again, his early game will be a bit better. It'll be a bit better in lane. I don't think that cooldown change is going to be that different on his ultimate. Obviously, it's only 5 seconds per level. So yeah, overall, he'll be a bit of a better laner. He's already a pretty solid champion. Definitely one of the better AP options in Baron lane. So I think he's still going to be a really solid champion. Okay, so now we have a bit of a buff and a nerf to, in my opinion, a bottom 3 champion in all of Wild Rift, which is Aurelia. I think Aurelia really sucks right now. But basically what they're doing, they're trying to make her early game weaker and her late game stronger, because she is a pretty good early game champion, but her late game sucks. So they're nerfing the base the damage initially on her passive, Ionian Fervor, or whatever it's called. But the later in the game you go, the more bonus damage that you're going to get. So basically going to do more damage later on in the game, less damage early on. And then her first ability is going to be very similar, where the base damage is getting nerfed, but the AD scaling is getting buffed. So if you have, more AD, which you would later in the game, you're going to do more damage. And then your health regeneration is also going to be more later in the game, but less earlier in the game. So basically just a straight up nerf to the early game, buff to the late game. Does this change anything? No, it doesn't. I hate to break it to you, Aurelia players. Aurelia will still suck, but her scaling being a bit better, that's going to be kind of nice, but her real strength is dominating the early game, and so now it's just going to be easier to survive her early game, and her late game is still going to be weaker than most other champions, so I really don't think she's going to be good at all right now. Okay, and next up we have a nerf to what I think is probably the best champion in Wild Rift right now, which is Echo. So they're nerfing his damage to monsters on his passive so that you can no longer clear nearly as fast. This is a great change because overall the clear speed was way too strong for such a strong late game champion. Then the second ability's passive damage is also getting nerfed from 3% health, missing health to 2%, and then also a little bit less AP scaling, so less damage overall on the second ability passive, so not as much damage to low health targets. And then the ultimate is getting a cooldown, like a higher cooldown on level 1 and level 2, but level 3 is the same. So overall, Echo jungle definitely getting nerfed the hardest here, because Echo in the mid lane will still have absurd wave clear. His damage is still going to be really high, but it's going to be a little lower, but they didn't nerf much on his overall damage to champions. The second ability nerf, it's something, but it's nothing crazy. And then the ultimate cooldown, it's not a significant change, but it is pretty big because Echo's ult cooldown is one of the most broken parts about him. Cooldowns in general, stuff like Echo and Zed have way too low ult cooldowns late in the game. And late in the game, he's still going to have that. But early on, the ult being a bit higher cooldown is definitely going to be nice. I would still say Echo will be extremely strong. He'll be a top tier champion, especially in the mid lane. Jungle now, he'll struggle a bit more. I would still say, now at this point, probably champions like Zed, like Nyla will definitely overtake him in the jungle, but he'll be probably still one of the top AP carries in the jungle. And then, yeah, mid lane, I still think he's going to be right up there with Syndra as the best mid laner. And lastly, for the balance changes, we have Ambessa. So Ambessa is really OP right now, so it makes sense that they're nerfing her. What they're doing is her passive now is going to just overall do less damage. Her first ability is going to do less damage to monsters, so her jungle clear is going to be a bit worse. And then her ultimate is going to give less regeneration on takedowns, so that's also really nice, because definitely the fact that she has the regen on takedowns, I mean, is pretty broken. reset champions in general kind of busted right now. So definitely, yeah, Besta's going to be quite a bit worse with this. I still think she's going to be a high level jungle. I think she'll be like, you know, in the upper kind of echelon of junglers, but I don't think, again, she'll be top tier. I think, again, right now, Nyla and Zed should be top. Amumu probably alongside them, and then champions like Vi and Echo are going to be right below that, and then Mbessa is probably close to that, I would say, just based on these balance changes. But yeah, then let's go into the item changes. Okay, then we have some item changes. So first off, we have Manamune is now going to stack easier once you complete Manamune. Instead of getting 10 mana per basic attack, or per ability rather, now you get 15 every time mana is spent or to launch a basic attack. So basically you're just going to be stacking mana quicker on Manamune. Does this change much? I mean, I think maybe like now you can hit it's easier by second dragon. You can hit your evolve on the item. I don't think it changes much. I think the same champions that build it will build it, the same champs that don't won't. That's pretty much how I feel about that. Then we have Stone Plate. So Stone Plate now, instead of for every person that you're around getting 14% of your max health for the shield, you get 10%. Pretty decent nerf. Stone Plate's still going to be the best on most bruisers and tank champions, but you know, a good nerf to make it a bit more manageable. But yeah, definitely still pretty broken enchant. Then we have Glorious. The range of triggering the speed boost thing will be a bit larger. And then after you cast it, the 15% bonus movement speed that you got will not be removed. I don't really know what that means, to be honest. I guess when you casted it normally, maybe that initial movement speed gets removed, but then like the movement speed you get going towards someone, you would just get... Honestly, nobody uses this apart from Olaf anyway. Doesn't really matter. And again, I don't think this changes who uses it. Same people will use it that used it before. Locket gets nerfed a little bit. Never use Locket. It sucks. I don't know why it's getting nerfed. It fucking sucks, bro. This is so dumb. When Veil is in the game, Locket should... Like, Locket is pointless. Horrible item. I mean, like, it's not actually horrible in the sense that it's actually relatively useful, but compared to the alternatives of Veil, it's just so much worse, so there's never really a reason to use it. Magnetron. I love using Magnetron on Thresh. And on some engage supports. And now you get 30% bonus movement speed after you use it for 1.5 seconds. So if you don't know how Magnetron works, because a lot of people don't, you can basically dash to either your minion, the enemy minion, any jungle camp, whether it's the enemy or your jungle camp, any monster like a Baron or a Dragon, or to your teammates. You can't dash onto the enemy, but you can dash on your teammates. You can dash onto all those different things that I said. It's actually pretty good for engage supports, and the extra movement speed might be, like, I think, like, for example, maybe you would use it on Olaf. Like, you could, it'd be really, really good for ganking, for example, because you can dash onto a minion, and then you get the movement speed to run towards them. I'm kind of curious to see it on some different champs. So that's actually something to look into. And then rune changes. So now, empowerment, 8% to 9% damage receive increase. So once you proc it, you know, you get the 4 autos. Onto people, then you get 9% damage instead of 8. Does this change anything? No. Again, small change, so I'm not really going to talk about it that much. I know I'm kind of saying the same thing for a lot of these, but really the champs who already used it, Tristana, maybe Renekton, a couple other champs, I use it on Warwick Jungle. They'll keep using it. The other champs won't really use it much. Cleanse, so happy about this cleanse. Funny, right after I made the video, clearly Riot listens to my videos, chat. That's what I've learned. I'm joking, obviously, but the cooldown of cleanse is going from 100 to 110 seconds, which is decent. And then now the time that you can be CC immune from 0.75 to 0.25. So basically, normally if you clicked cleanse, and then say 0.7 seconds after someone hit you with a stun, you would block that stun. But now it's only 0.25 seconds. So this is pretty significant because now it's not really going to be as reactive. It's going to be more like, oh, now I'm stunned and now I click it, instead of like predicting the type of thing, basically. So that's actually pretty nice. I'm pretty happy about that. Definitely a solid nerf. I still think cleanse is really, really strong, but definitely brings it more in line with exhaust and stuff like that. And then enchanted ensemble, instead of doing 60% of the turret's max health, it'll do 50%. So basically it used to do 1800 to tier 1 turrets, now it'll do 1500. And then Baron Nashor going from 60% damage reduction of empowered minions from enemy champs. So basically the minions, the amount of damage reduction they would take from champions, instead of 60, it's now going to be 50 in the early game, and then scaling up to 60 in the late game. So early game, it's going to be a bit easier to kill Baron minions, basically. And so that's going to be all for the balance changes and everything. Honestly, I think this patch is extremely good. I would rate it like an A. Like, I think the nerfs are amazing. Echo getting nerfed, Ambessa getting nerfed. The item changes are all pretty much to items that need these changes. Cleanse getting nerfed. Absolutely amazing patch. You know, could there be more? Are there? Yeah, sure, there could always be some things that you don't agree with, and same here. But overall, I definitely want to, you know, praise Riot when they make a good patch, and I think this is a great patch overall. So yeah, let me know your thoughts on the patch, and I'll see you guys in the next video.